Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Lendy Ruano, and I am with Easter Seals of Southern California and the Disability Tribe Initiative. Today's live webinar, Supporting Healthy Aging for Californians with Disabilities, will be offering Spanish and ASL interpretation. Para las personas que necesitan o prefieren el español, usted puede acceder a este servicio haciendo clic en el icono con el globo blanco en la parte baja de su pantalla, que dice Interpretation. Después haga clic en Spanish. Aquí tendrá la opción de silenciar el audio original y podrá escuchar la voz de Mark Gutiérrez traduciendo. En el canal de español tendrá la opción de seleccionar Mute Original Audio y escuchará solamente al intérprete. Si no lo hace, entonces escuchará a los presentadores de habla inglesa al fondo. If you prefer to listen in English, please stay with the original sound. If you select English, you will hear silence. Our ASL interpreter is Destiny Bradford. She has been spotlighted so she can always be seen throughout the presentation. Depending on your device, this may mean that sometimes you cannot see the presenter. We do apologize for the inconvenience, but we want to make sure that this live meeting and recording can be accessible to everyone. This presentation will have closed captioning, which you can access using the button at the bottom of the screen. Next slide, please. A few things to note about Zoom before we get started. This meeting is being recorded to allow us to refer to today's discussion and the input we receive. You can hear and see us, but we cannot hear and see you. Everyone has been automatically put on mute and your camera is not on. Chat is not activated for attendees. However, presenters will be sharing some information through the chat during the webinar. If you would like to ask a question or provide a comment, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. As a reminder, please indicate who your question or comment is for. We do have staff monitoring and responding as necessary. Some questions will be answered in real time, or we may ask for your email address to follow up after the webinar. Si necesita hacer preguntas o comentarios en español, lo puede hacer utilizando la caja que dice Q y A. Tenemos personal bilingüe asistiendo. Finally, at the end of today's webinar, we will be asking you to participate in our post-event survey. Once the webinar is over, a new window will pop open with the survey. Please provide your feedback so we can improve on future events. Next slide, please. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Executive Director at California Disabilities Services Association, Barry Jardini, and Director of Person-Centered Services at Easter Seals, Amber Carey Navarrete. Barry, Amber?
Thank you so much, Lendy, and good afternoon, everyone. We are thrilled to have you here today on the webinar for Supporting Healthy Aging for Californians with Disabilities. This is a topic that has been requested on numerous occasions over the course of the Disability Thrive Initiative. And we are just, like I said, thrilled to have a great panel of presenters today, as well as to have a great audience here to observe and learn the lessons that our experts have to provide. So without further ado, I will kick it over to my colleague, Amber Carey Navarrete, to run you through today's agenda, and we'll get the show started.
Thank you so much, Barry. Next slide, please. As Barry mentioned, we have a lot of really great information to share with you today, and we will start by focusing on strategies and programs to support older adults with disabilities right here in California, which will then lead us to the aging and disability priorities, opportunities, and partnerships developed through the California Department of Aging. We will also be sharing practices addressing and supporting some of the health disparities seen within the disabled older adult community, and then highlight how to connect and access aging services in your own local areas. Finally, we will end the presentation with how you can support life planning for those who use services to create their own unique roadmap to happy and healthy aging. Next slide. So without further ado, we would like to start with Susan DeMorse, Director with the California Department of Aging, who was so kind as to provide us with a video sharing the state strategies and programs to support aging people with IDD. Video, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susan DeMorris, the Director of the California Department of Aging, and it's my honor to join you today virtually and to be part of this learning series that I am told has been a lifeline throughout the pandemic, and we continue to be in the pandemic. So I'm so grateful that this resource continues, and I'm just delighted that the focus today is on older adults and how we can support our aging population and our disability community together through the Disability Thrive initiative. So thank you for the opportunity to make a few opening remarks. I wanted to start at the top with the California Health and Human Services Agency and our secretary, Dr. Mark Galley, who oversees all of the departments that work across the health and human services sector, people of all ages and all abilities. Our leader, Dr. Galley, talks every time about breaking down silos, and we are doing that as we speak, working across departments within the agency and across agencies too, to include workforce and housing. And beyond breaking down silos, that's really our first step. Our real goal is to integrate services, to be more inclusive, and ultimately to unify our services, our approach, and our delivery system. And this webinar today is one way that we're doing that, where we're integrating, being more inclusive, and ultimately unifying. At the Department of Aging, as the lead entity for the Master Plan for Aging, I cannot stress enough the importance of stakeholder engagement and hearing from the communities that we serve throughout the state. And by community, it's people of all ages and all abilities. We know that in our communities, people don't live and work based on an age, a unilateral age or an income level. At the community level, we're well integrated. And so it's so important that this initiative and other avenues like this, that we hear from stakeholders. As part of the Master Plan for Aging process, we have 6 formal stakeholder advisory committees: the Disability and Aging Community Living Advisory Committee, the Elder and Disability Justice Coordinating Council, the Alzheimer's Advisory Committee, the Equity Work Group, and the Impact Committee that provides oversight for us. We continually look for new public members of those committees, and I would invite any of you that are interested to consider joining us and let us know of your interest. I'm also honored and privileged in my role as director to serve on the State Council on Developmental Disabilities, as well as the State Independent Living Council. And we work very hard to make sure that we're communicating formally and informally with the Department of Developmental Services, the Department of Social Services, and here at the Department of Aging, with our Aging and Disability Resource Connections, we work very closely with the Department of Rehabilitation and the state's independent living centers. So we are striving to do our best, and you can make us better. So please communicate with us, participate in the public webinars and trainings that we offer, continue your involvement in the Disability Thrive initiative. And I invite all of you to join us on September 20th. There will be a statewide convening in Sacramento. It's called CAL for All Ages and Abilities, a Day of Action. This is where together we will all shape the next 2 years of the Master Plan for Aging. As you may know, this is a 10-year blueprint for our state, and we're coming up on a new legislative session, a new budget cycle, and we invite you all to stay with us, and if you haven't been involved, to join us. And now I'd like to turn it over to Sarah Steenhausen from the Department of Aging, and Sarah has prepared slides to share with all of you, and we look forward to hearing from Sarah. Thank you again for the invitation. I look forward to continuing the work with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Director DeMorris, for that wonderful introduction. And it is such an honor to be here today with all of you. My name is Sarah Steenhausen. I am Deputy Director for Aging Policy, Research, and Equity at the Department of Aging. And I really appreciate the ability to talk to you today to cover the priorities of the Department of Aging opportunities with programs and services that we provide that you can utilize at the local level, as well as the importance of partnership and planning to prepare for effective services in the long term. So to begin, I want to talk a bit about the Department of Aging's vision and mission. The Department of Aging's vision is for an age and ability-friendly California where people can choose where and how they live throughout their lives. And our mission ultimately is to transform aging for all Californians, focusing on providing individuals, their families, and their communities with better options for care, delivered with equity and a focus on individual well-being. We believe we can achieve our mission through innovative programs, planning, policies, and most importantly, partnership with across the state level and with our partners at the local level. The Department of Aging is committed to person-centered services, engaging and listening to all stakeholders. We know that we can only improve the system through this engagement and by understanding the realities of the experience you live every day. Again, focusing on partnership between aging and disability services and underscoring the importance of equity in everything we do to ensure that we have a spotlight on the needs of every race, ethnicity, language, culture, income, and disability in California. So just as a bit of a context, we know that aging is changing and it's changing California. Very interestingly, the average life expectancy in 2020 was almost 82 years, and that is the second highest average life expectancy in the nation. The reason this is important is because it holds tremendous implications for how we deliver services and supports that meet the needs of people as we age, to be ensured that we can have the capacity to provide services in the most comprehensive way. What's very important to recognize too is that not only is the population aging, it's becoming more racially and ethnically diverse. We estimate that by 2030, not only will 1 in 4 individuals be over the age of 60, but the majority of older adults will no longer be white, non-Hispanic older adults. We're seeing increasing rates of race and ethnicity across our population. And this is really important because we have to think about how we ensure that we develop services that are culturally responsive with language access for all individuals, regardless of where they live and what language they may speak or what their background is. So with this, Governor Gavin Newsom in 2019 thought it was really important to begin planning for and preparing for this historic aging of our population so that we can be prepared for 2030 when 1 out of every 4 individuals is over the age of 60. So in 2019, he declared that the state would develop a master plan for aging. And he issued an executive order calling on the Health and Human Services Agency to work with state partners and stakeholders to develop a master plan to address the needs of California's older adults, people with disabilities, and family caregivers so that everybody has the opportunity to age with dignity and independence. So the master plan for aging was released in January of 2021 after extensive stakeholder input, informed by not only advocates for older adults, but also people with disabilities and family caregivers. And ultimately, what it does is it centers around 5 bold goals. And within each of these goals, there are a number of strategies and initiatives that we will be updating next year for the next 2 years of the master plan for aging. The goals address the range of services and supports that people need to age with dignity and independence, including goal 1, looking at housing and transportation for all ages and stages. Goal 2 is focusing on reimagining our healthcare delivery system so that it's more responsive to the whole needs of the person, looking at better ways to coordinate and integrate services across long-term services and supports, social determinants of health, and healthcare. Goal 3 focuses on inclusion and equity and fighting the isolation that is all too common as people age. So focusing on ways to empower and engage older adults and to undergird everything that we do across all the goals with equity. I think we saw with the pandemic the tremendous disparities across our population and the need to really focus on equity in all we do. The fourth goal focuses on our workforce and really looking at the direct care workforce that's so critical to providing services and supports to people of all ages. Not only the paid direct care workforce, but our unpaid family and friend caregiver workforce that's so critical to keeping people at home and in the community. And then finally, goal 5 focuses on affording aging and how we might fight poverty and senior poverty so that people can age with dignity and independence in their communities. So now I'm going to switch gears and focus on some of the opportunities and the programs and services that are provided in our network for older adults, people with disabilities, and family caregivers. I just want to start by giving a little context. The Department of Aging oversees 33 area agencies on aging that are essentially the planning and service areas for services delivered at the local level. So you can outreach to your local area agency on aging and get connected to these services that I'm about to walk through. And we can certainly follow up and give you more information on how to do so. The core services in our aging network primarily are delivered for people over the age of 60, but we also have services and supports for family caregivers, family or friend caregivers who are supporting their loved one at homes. There's a range of different services that I'm about to walk through that are in our aging network, ranging from nutrition and meals to information and assistant to different supportive services, as well as home modification and caregiver support, among others. First, starting with nutrition and meals. Our area agencies on aging, this is often what people think of when they think of the area agencies on aging is nutrition and meal support. So these are meals and delivered in both congregate settings, such as senior centers, but also for home delivered meals, where people can get meals delivered to them at their home if they're unable to prepare their meals or get out and do their own shopping. So you can get connected to these services through your local networks as well. The Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly, or what's known as PACE. This is an important program that provides team-based care for medical care and long-term services and supports in a setting in the local community. It's for people who would otherwise be eligible for care in a nursing home, but who would benefit from these services that provide very in-depth wraparound care for older adults in the community aged 55 and older. Again, it's an effort to help develop ways to keep people at home and in their community and avoid institutionalization. I know you're going to be learning more about the community-based adult services program, so I won't go into tremendous detail, but these are critical community-based services that allow older adults and people with disabilities over aged 18 who need services and supports to remain in the community. And it allows them to go to a congregate social setting to receive professional nursing services, physical, occupational, and speech therapies, behavioral health services, as well as a number of other social services and supports that people need as they age. And also what's really important is that this program provides transportation to and from the participants' residence. So again, this is available for people aged 18 and over. There are many people with developmental disabilities, I believe, who receive services in community-based adult services settings. So it's a wonderful resource for all of you at the local level. The Multi-Purpose Senior Services Program is a relatively small but very important program that provides intensive care coordination and assistance for older adults who would otherwise be eligible for nursing home placement. So it's a way to help keep people in the home through care coordination and access to certain services in the community, such as housing assistance, personal care, protective supervision, transportation, and meal services as well, among others. We're really excited that very soon we will be launching a pilot program to provide Alzheimer's Day Center support at the community level. We're calling it the Cal Compass program, and there is an RFP out right now for local partners to apply to become Alzheimer's Day Centers to include caregiver support, social services, and dementia responsive care for individuals with Alzheimer's or dementia at the local level. There's a series of supports available to family caregivers, family or friend caregivers who are caring for people with dementia, Alzheimer's disease, or other cerebrovascular diseases such as strokes or aneurysm. This is a really important service that says we recognize that the services that family and friend caregivers provide are critical, and that we as a state need to support the caregiver in their role. So the services provided include information and assessment, consultation, care navigation, and respite, among others. The Department of Rehabilitation oversees a network of independent living centers, and these assist individuals aged 18 and over who are disabled, providing a range of services and support such as peer advocacy, information and referral, independent living skills, counseling, and transition and diversion from nursing home stays, as well as a number of other services and supports as a way to empower individuals with disabilities to remain in the community and have access to the services that they need. The California Community Transition Services is a specialized program that's overseen by the Department of Healthcare Services, focused on helping individuals who live in nursing homes, but who wish to transition back to the community. These are people who have traditionally stayed in nursing homes for longer than 60 days and who want to move back, but need the services and supports to do so. So it can include helping them find housing and coordinating access to services once they are in the community. So now I just want to conclude by just highlighting the importance of, again, building partnership and bridging the aging and disability networks. We know that together we can be much stronger when we coordinate services and advocacy together. We know that individuals with developmental disabilities are aging. At the same time, we know that the caregivers of individuals with developmental disabilities are aging. So there's many opportunities for us to think about how we can share information, provide the services and supports across our systems so that we're all empowered to live in the ways that we want as we age in community. So this is a really important time with the master plan for aging for us all to be thinking about what are the ways that we can work together. And I'm hopeful that we can put a link up in the chat to registering for the California for All Ages and Abilities Day of Action. It's a conference that we're holding in Sacramento on September 20th. It's in person, it's free to register, and we would love to see you there. So again, we will, if you go to ca4all.org, you can register, and we will put that link up in the chat. So thank you so much for inviting me to be here today, and look forward to the opportunity to engage further with you.
I want to thank Director Damaris and Deputy Director Steenhausen for that presentation. It's excellent to hear about all the great stuff going on there at the Department of Aging. We are going to transition now to a presentation on health disparities in aging for people with intellectual disabilities. And we are delighted to be joined by Kathy Service to present on this topic. Kathy has a lifetime of experience really in this. She was sharing with us beforehand. She's a family nurse practitioner, a certified developmental disability nurse, a founding board member of the Developmental Disabilities Nurses Association, and an inaugural and board member of the National Task Force Group on Intellectual Disabilities and Dementia Practices. So we are blessed to have you here with us today, Kathy. I will turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you all so much. And I'm really delighted to be here. So, and I'll be talking about these topics, and both the topics, health disparities and clinical practices, are vast in themselves. So And with disparities really gaining a much more warranted interest the past few years, especially given our DEI movement. We're also understanding that the environment's social determinants of health are inseparable from clinical practices. So bear with me as I guide you on a whirlwind, superficial tour of these notions. And my slides are dense, I'll admit that, but I'm going to highlight some things. So think about people that you support who are aging with intellectual disabilities. I want you to remember a few key ideas that run through the topic. These include the lifespan, includes life story, the benefits of a baseline, diversity and person-centered approaches, well-being. For older people, for all of us, it's a worthy goal. And then the notion of interpersonal and group relationships and partnerships. And the man on the slide is my good friend of 30 plus years, and he's speaking about healthcare decisions at the DDNA, Developmental Disabilities Nurses Association conference in 2018. He's been one of my best teachers. So when I asked Bruce, I told him about this, and he said, I might like to kind of use some of your examples. He said, you can tell the people about me, Kathy Service. I'll let you, my friend. So he's going to be helping me to guide us through this. Next slide. So really, we really need to have a base of information for older people so we can effectively serve them. So why do people age the way they do? And this takes into account the lens of the lifespan. I think you can figure out which factors are modifiable and which aren't. And really, to provide a balance, we need to understand that these factors also influence neuroplasticity, cognitive reserve, and resilience. So let me start with my fellow tour guide, Bruce. He was about 6 when he and his brother, who didn't have ID, were placed in the institution. They were 2 of 21 children, single birth, from a pretty impoverished background. His brother told me he really watched out for Bruce in the institution. And the family connections were pretty rare for a number of reasons. And I recently learned lots of times they didn't have a working car and the institution was 60 plus miles away. So you can see it. Next slide, please. So here's where the rubber meets the road. The WHO defines the social determinants of health as conditions in where people are born, grow, live, work, and age, and are shaped by money, power, and resources. And I'd like to add politics and legal system. So using Bruce, the culture of the time in Massachusetts was pretty liberal. It was influenced by the Kennedys. And in the mid-1970s, when he left, they moved a lot of people out of this institution. He got a job at a natural foods restaurant, starting with the usual janitorial work, but he moved up in the area. And the owner had been a conscientious objector who did his service at a state institution. Bruce has worked for him for 35 plus years and still works for him. At the restaurant, he also developed a taste for nutritionally great food, and he's got a sweet and engaging personality. And by his nature and the social climate of the city where we reside, he really responds to social activities. His personality was such, and I see this all the time, there's a genuine reciprocity with relationships. Here's another example about the social determinants of health. In the 1980s, we had this major lawsuit regarding the use of antipsychotic medication, which really modified our medical practices at the institution and in the community. Next slide. So here's a summary of some of the normal biological changes. And there's a lot more that I haven't mentioned. For instance, the yellowing of the lens of the eye. For instance, it's really harder to differentiate with a blue background in reading. The other thing is older people don't respond as well to infection. So they may not have a fever, but have an infection. And in fact, early on in COVID, in the geriatric world, we learned that delirium was the presenting sign of COVID for people in older people. Next slide. So some of these I'm not going to elaborate on, but I really think if you think about this in that previous slide, it really calls attention the numerous dilemmas that we all have in terms of balancing safety, independence, and choice. And my best suggestion is the mutual development of creative safeguards. And I want to mention secondary conditions, what the Institute of Medicine defined as any additional physical or mental health condition that occurs as a result of having that primary disabling condition. For instance, people with cerebral palsy report increasing pain and fatigue and a decline in walking ability much earlier than one would expect. I'm not going to get into a lot more because of time constraints, but there are a lot of other examples. So in addition to the DD nurses, I really want to encourage partnering with our allied health colleagues, PT, OT, speech, adaptive design. Find people in your community and work with them. Relationships do matter. Next slide, please. So I won't linger on this, but I purposely included this graphic because of the overwhelming concern amongst everybody regarding dementia. And we know age is the biggest risk factor. And so I'm talking about aging people with intellectual disabilities. And we already know about other groups of people like people with Down syndrome. The point here is to look at risk factors and think about the people that you support and where and how during the lifespan you can partner with and intervene and make a difference. The Lancet article where this is taken for focus that said that things may be prevented, but more importantly, you can mitigate the onset and course of dementia. And frankly, I want to say that the research is sparse and on other ID related conditions such as autism and cerebral palsy. There is some research, but I think it's way too early to draw confident conclusions. And I always caution people who don't fully understand reading research to seek somebody with the expertise who can do that and interpret things for you. And I would love to remind people, you're really fortunate here in California to have Dr. Lucy Ezerlou, a neuropsychologist who's on the National Task Group and is quite an expert in research and aging. And she works for your DDS. So great, good for you. And lastly, I suspect that while autism and CP or any of the other ID entities may not be the direct cause, it's those risk factors that may increase the possibility. So that's where we can work our charm. Next slide, please. So once again, we see all those social factors on slides, and look on that right side, we talk about the 6 pillars of health and increasing engagement. And that's what we as nurses really nag you about. And for all of them, there's growing evidence that it's not only are these good for brain health, but they are good for well-being across the lifespan and even for people living with dementia. And the Health Matters group, and the link is on the bottom, has many years of teaching and mentoring people with ID about healthy living. And it produced lots of free webinars on the YouTube on a myriad of practical health topics. Next slide. So I'm just going to chat a few other things. And for a number of reasons, we all recommend a baseline of function, which includes skills, behaviors, personality, mood, and the usual memory for people with intellectual disabilities, say ideally at age 35, 40, when they're at their personal best. You know, with staff turnover and death in families, et cetera, we often lose people who really know the person. And as I'm a nurse practitioner, and I've often assessed older people, and it's really beneficial to have this to accurately assess change in an individual with ID and to prevent diagnostic overshadowing, which is commonplace in our population. Also, for system navigation and management, partnering with case management and working across the aisles, as the speakers have already talked about, whether it's aging or hospitals, because transitions are fraught with difficulties for all older people. And these proactive relationships really enable you to do a lot, like developing of protocols. For instance, I joined my hospital ethics committee, and at the senior center, I would be bringing Bruce with me to hang out at the coffee shop when I was volunteering. And there was a lot of lively banter mutually among everybody. Getting involved with those age-friendly, dementia-friendly movement in your community, I'm always bringing people into the discussion and planning. And those of us who work in the field of intellectual disabilities really have a lot of information and skills regarding accessibility, which the general community may lack, particularly in practical implementation. And lastly, clinical and communities and best and civic practices are optimally served by partnerships. So together, we can all address these social factors and environments, internal and external, and add to well-being and be as age-friendly to all as much as possible. And I want to thank everybody. And you do more than you probably realize for the quality of people's lives. So thank you for all you do. And I'll leave you with be kind to others, but be kind to yourselves. Again, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That was an absolute wealth of information. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm hoping everyone here in attendance has as well. To continue today's theme of breaking down our silos and building partnerships between aging resources, it is my pleasure to introduce Debbie Tuth, President and CEO of Choice in Aging, presenting Beyond the Regional Center, Accessing Local Aging Services. Thank you so much for being here today, Debbie. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you too. Thank you so much for having me, Amber, and a shout out to Kathleen Kalenda, a leader in our industry. I'm thrilled to be here with you today and share a little more about the variety of amazing services that are available to people who are aging with disabilities that will allow them to age with dignity and choice in their community. Next slide. I'm excited to introduce you to Choice in Aging, my absolute very favorite nonprofit organization with a beautiful long history of serving people with disabilities, enabling them to continue living in their setting of choice with the support they need. We were founded in 1949 by a wonderful physical therapist who knew we could do better than treating children with polio on a church pew in a basement. She gathered the community together, got 4 acres of land donated, and built a beautiful state-of-the-art polio rehab facility. Over the years, we've provided services to people with a wide range of disabilities, and in the late 70s began to form our specialty focus on the aging and disabled population. Today, we provide those services in 4 counties. Next slide, please. As you can see, our services on the screen there, you will recognize many of them were described by Sarah Steenhausen from the Department of Aging. In addition to the ones she covered, which were adult day healthcare, also called community-based adult services, the multipurpose senior services program, and California community transition, we also provide services that we choreographed and created out of the needs that we saw with the families we were serving. So we created an intergenerational preschool that connects with our adult day healthcare program, busting ageism and ableism before they can take root. We created a mental health care management and education program, a specialized door-through-door transportation program, and a bunch of advocacy and policy work with that. Caregiver support and education, and we do a lot of policy and budget advocacy because we have to. Next slide, please. We have to because we live in a society that is ageist and ableist, meaning if we have disabilities or are aging, there are some serious barriers to us getting what we need. And that is where the wonderful master plan for aging that Sarah mentioned is so important. Building off of all of the services we have covered so far and getting us to where we are in a place where we are sufficiently funding these programs and where we include thinking about aging and disability needs when we plan things like parks, housing, healthcare systems, transportation, and more. At this moment in time, we are trying to build aging and disability into an already built system that wasn't built for us. So we're working on 2 tracks. One is to fix the existing world around us as we build, and the other is to create better places and spaces for ourselves and our children and future generations. Next slide, please. But while we are building out that master plan, it is important for us to know what services there are where we live. Sarah mentioned that we have 33 service planning areas, and guess what? Each one has a different mix of services. Oy. So how do you know what is available to you where you live? Thankfully, that's easy. You call 800-510-2020 and ask. Each of those 33 planning areas have an area agency on aging that receives funding to ensure you have access to the services where you live. These services include transportation, nutrition, caregiver support, respite, legal services, help navigating, and more. Next slide, please. Each area agency on aging supports an information and assistance line that will help you find what you need. So that's always your first call. In Contra Costa County, our information and assistance line, or INA as we call it, is answered by social workers who can help you get a phone with large numbers if that's what you need, or louder sound if that's what you need. They'll programs to reduce your PG&E and phone bills, find rental subsidies, connect you to transportation services above and beyond paratransit, and so much more. They can also connect you to all the services Sarah covered in her presentation. And if you are living in a boarding care or group home or assisted living or skilled nursing facility, there is a local long-term ombudsman that is your advocate. They will ensure your needs related to living and care are their top priority. You have rights. Always remember that. Next slide, please. So about those rights you so richly deserve, we have what are called senior legal services. And if you're over 60, those services are for you regardless of income. Today, we are seeing a great number of inquiries about housing subsidies, eviction protections, but they can also help in so many more ways with elder abuse, education, advocacy with Social Security, supplemental security income, Medicare, Medi-Cal, discrimination, and the list goes on. As Sarah mentioned, Meals on Wheels has a variety of nutrition programs, but more and more these programs are expanding their services and offering support like fall prevention classes, fall prevention assessments in the home, friendly visitor calls, and in-home visits. Don't forget your information and assistance at 800-510-2020. They can connect you. Next slide, please. The Aging and Disability Resource Connection is a model that is rolling its way out in California. We don't have them in every service area, but hopefully someday will. This is where aging and disability services connect hands, and you enter through one single point of entry. There is no wrong door. They will help you access services like the enhanced information and referral options counseling. Next slide, please. They also provide short-term service coordination for people at risk of being placed. And just like the CCT program can help people get out. Next slide, please. Sarah went over these two programs in terms of what they offer from a regulatory perspective. I want to talk to you about what they look and feel like. Next slide, please. These are my people. These are the people who work in and attend community-based adult services, and some who also get support through the multi-purpose senior services programs. These programs are all about getting to know you, your desires in life, and helping you achieve your best life. We do that with puppies and painting and music and gardening. We do that by creating opportunities to build friendships and work on our goals, whether through exercise classes or working with our physical therapist to increase strength and prevent falls, or meeting with our dietitian to create an eating plan that allows you to feel better and do more. We do fun stuff like have a carnival day, Halloween costume contest, live music performances, and intergenerational balloon volleyball. We help ensure you can get to and from doctor's appointments, grocery stores, and can connect you to things like mobile faith-based services. While there are regulatory limits as to what we can do, we oftentimes don't let that stop us. Shh, don't tell the state. We are your partners in living your best life. And just because we are aging doesn't mean we cannot have joy in our lives. The world is not always kind to people with developmental and intellectual disabilities. But if you tap into the incredible network of aging services, as have been outlined today, I hope you will find the joy we have in working in this space. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Debbie, thank you so much for highlighting and sharing all those great local resources to improve people's lives, give them better access to the services that they need. It's a wealth of information, and hopefully everyone can go back to the slides as well and review that information as well. So the last presenters we have today are from Tierra del Sol Foundation. And first, I'm going to introduce Teresa Ratham, the regional director for Tierra del Sol, who is going to do a nice introduction about life planning for people with disabilities. Teresa.
Hi, everybody. In 1971, a handful of parents founded Tierra del Sol because they wanted something better for their children's life other than to be institutionalized. They wanted them to be able to become valued members of their community. Next slide. So here we are in 2022. We have 800 families that are a part of the Tierra del Sol Foundation. And the reason I mentioned families and not individuals is because we at Tierra have made a commitment to the family unit. Whether it's to help a parent understand that their child is an adult, realizing that their child might outlive them and they have no plan, or seeing the decline in one's physical and mental health. I remember about 7 or 8 years ago sitting in our CEO's car, Rebecca Leinhard, and talking about how our managers and staff we're having a hard time keeping up with supporting all of our families through all of these aging issues. And I remember Rebecca saying, we need help. We need to hire somebody that is comfortable having the difficult conversations with our family members. And we need to hire somebody that has built the relationships. And we both knew instantly it was Julie Snyder, who's worked at Tierra for over 31 years. And we made the commitment to hire her as our life navigator. And I just wanted to introduce her. So thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you, Teresa. Over my 31 years at Tierra del Sol, much of my training has come from our parents and the individuals that we serve. Our parents founded our organization, and they've been strong advocates throughout the lives of their sons and daughters. When these founding parents began their journey with their son or daughter, they were told that their child would not have a long life, and they should expect to have their child go before them. This generation is now living a normal lifespan, and they are outliving their parents. It has been a privilege to be a part of these lives and to help families and individuals work through the many struggles. I have participated in my share of heartbreaking stories, but it's been a journey of discovery, and each discovery has led me on a new path to finding answers or a solution for whatever comes our way. I've learned so much, and it has helped me to help others navigate this new territory. Next slide, please. What I have learned from older adults with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities and their families is that there are several stages that require unique ways of planning and support. I will be discussing these throughout my presentation, and they are active retirement, life planning, and advanced care planning and end-of-life decision-making. All of the work that I do is rooted in person-centered practices. Using this process at these stages in life will help to identify and enhance their quality of life during these important transitions. It will help the individual and their circle of support visualize and take action towards individuals with IDD so they can identify the additional support that they will require and continue to have meaningful lives. Next slide, please. I would like to introduce Elaine. Elaine is now 76 years old. She has been with Tierra for over 25 years. She was a very vibrant advocate who wrote letters to the governor and whoever else would listen. She worked and was devoted to the children in Tierra's daycare for over 20 years and wouldn't miss a day. I used to love to see Elaine on the floor with the kids crawling on her lap, her trying to read to them, and they're grabbing the book. And then Elaine couldn't read, but she found ways to tell them stories, and it was the pride of her life. We knew Elaine's needs were changing when she started to say, well, maybe I should just go 1 or 2 days a week, to eventually just really not wanting to go. It seemed like a new transition for Elaine and a time for a person-centered plan. And you can see Elaine sitting there with her person-centered plan and working on it. And she was strongly advocating for being able to get back to a senior center with her friends. And we discovered a lot of important things about Elaine during her path plan. Now at this time in Elaine's life, she is receiving in-person services 2 days a week. She requires a walker. She is requesting a wheelchair more and more. She's having difficulty staying awake during the day, and she needs one-to-one supports in the restroom. Elaine is in the process of getting back to the senior center with her friends because she's still advocating to do that. And yesterday I received a text from her sister saying, Elaine said that she had a wonderful day today, Julie, at Tierra, and she loves being with her friends and her staff. Thanks to all of you that made this happen. So we know we're all headed on the right path. Next slide, please. It took some time to form the great partnerships with the local senior centers. Early on, when we first attempted to integrate into the senior centers, the acceptance wasn't there. Starting out by volunteering at the centers, it really did help to pave the way and help the relationships to form so that we could be fully accepted and integrated. Tiara also offered trainings like sensitivity training to the staff at the senior centers to help them see older adults with IDD in the same way that they see their non-disabled seniors. And we worked with R&D transportation and rideshare companies to drop off and pick up at the senior centers in order to provide fully integrated days in keeping in line with HCBS regulations. When individuals are facing this transition, you'll want to explore and ask the question, what does active retirement look like to you? Do you need a shorter day, a flexible schedule? Do you need to stop working? Do you have any physical changes that require more support? Looking at individuals' needs and what they can tolerate at this time in their life needs to really be considered. Fitting into the system and having a typical program or work day, getting up at 5:30 or 6 may not work for them any longer. This is an area where we really need to think outside the box, allowing them to have the supports they need for a flexible schedule. Next slide, please. Now we will talk a little bit about life planning. In later life planning, communication with family members is critical to avoid disruptive transitions. We have to be prepared to have these sensitive and hard conversations. Because individuals with IDD are now living longer, systems and services are currently underprepared to assist the individuals and their families in identifying their upcoming needs and the challenges facing this population in the future. Next slide, please. This is a picture of a mom and her daughter. Imagine this mother and her daughter at this stage in their life. Now, basically, they are supporting each other. Here is a mom who has a cane and should probably be using a walker. She's taking her daughter to a surgical appointment, and that will require extra support and care from mom when her daughter gets home. Parents often put off their own medical and self-care needs in order to be the primary caregiver throughout their whole life with their disabled loved one. On the left is a mom who went through a difficult hospitalization with her daughter who has profound disabilities. She had to make some end-of-life decisions that she wasn't prepared to make. It was a very emotional time and she needed extra support during this process. Making plans ahead of time is necessary. Next slide, please. Life planning should include siblings, parents who will face a time when the parent can no longer care for their loved one. This can create a crisis in the family if plans are not in place. Tiara uses the Future Is Now curriculum to help families and siblings go through a series of workshops where they can be together in a sort of supportive space to be able to dream, express their thoughts, fears, wishes for their loved one's future. The ultimate goal of this series is to work to create a letter of intent, which is a document that will basically create a roadmap that will hold all the things that the parent knows about their loved one and identifies future living options. Completing this document gives parents and family members tremendous peace of mind. Next slide, please. Advanced care planning and end-of-life decision-making is equally as important. It is critical that we help individuals with IDD plan out what they would prefer to do as they age, along with how they would like to approach the end of their life. I recently worked with a 40-year-old woman who was ready to do her advanced care directive. I used the Stanford, California Advanced Healthcare Directive, which is a very good tool to use. It has pictures and definitions. In my learning experiences, my learning experiences have also allowed me to become educated and to work alongside individuals with Down syndrome who have developed Alzheimer's disease. This is an area that needs special attention and support as well on so many levels. Through my experience, I have seen far too many who have had to leave their program and homes to spend their final time in skilled nursing facilities without the attention and support that they have been used to. and quite honestly appear to have been lost in the system. Next slide, please. No matter what our roles are in the lives of those we serve with IDD, we owe it to them to explore and discover what the needs are throughout their later stages in life. They have had advocacy, supports, and services all of their lives, and it needs to continue as they age with the same respect and dignity that we would want for ourselves and our loved ones. Until there is more training and more services, we all need to be able to go above and beyond to ensure their quality of life. You will have to take the time to ask the right questions, educate and dig deeper into individuals' lives and the lives of families. Each story is different and requires different intervention. There are many resources out there, and we have to all work together, communicate and share so people aren't reinventing the wheel. Through advocacy and grants, aging and dementia work groups have been formed up and down the state, and a lot of us know where to find resources. But I sure learned a lot today about resources I didn't know anything about. So thank you, everybody. In the future, the unique support needs for this aging population will require specialized positions and/or expertise and knowledge across all services. So I'm going to ask you, what are our next steps? Who can we network with? And what can we do to prepare? Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Julie. We really appreciate you and everybody there at Tierra del Sol and all the great work that you have been doing. I love how across the presentation today, we're breaking down those silos and really talking about connecting with resources and bridging different organizations and creating partnerships, and then really ending it here with that unique roadmap that each person needs to meet their desires for a happy and healthy aging. And I just want to thank all of our presenters one more time for all the wealth of information shared here today. And I hope everyone out there in the audience has gotten as much from this presentation as I have. And we would love it for all of you out there to join us and keep this conversation going this Friday, August 12th. At noon for our lunch and learn. It is not a webinar format, it is a meeting format, which means we get to have a dialogue between our panelists and any of you in attendance to ask your questions live or discuss the different practices that you have been employing to better support our aging population as we talk about, and all older adults who use our services. So thank you all for being here today, and we really hope to see you this Friday. You can register at lunchandlearn.disabilitythriveinitiative.org. I'll hand it over to you, Barry.
Thanks, Amber. I would just like to echo your sentiments and gratitude for our speakers today, and also for all of you in attendance. Like Amber said, I really hope you took as much from this as we did. We welcome you to join us, of course, for the Lunch and Learn on Friday, but also want to highlight for you all what our next topic will be in the Disability Thrive Initiative webinar series. It will be on expanding the vision for employment services for people with disabilities. That is scheduled for September 14th. At our usual time from 3 to 4 p.m. We really hope to see you there, and you can register at webinar.disabilitythriveinitiative.org. Next slide, please. And just a reminder that all the great resources that are developed as part of the Disability Thrive Initiative are available to you going back from all the way into last year. Those can all be accessed at our resource library at disabilitythriveinitiative.org. Slides will be there, videos, etc. And you can also sign up for email updates to make sure you're getting the latest news and information about upcoming events. And you can sign up for that at signup.disabilitythriveinitiative.org. And next slide. And that is it for today. I want to just thank everyone again for being here. Thank our presenters one more time. And Amber, I will let you have a final word.
Yes, thank you so much. So also a big thanks to our interpreters here today, helping to make sure that the information is accessible to all. You can reach out to us at any time at info@disabilitythriveinitiative.org. And just a thank you to the whole Disability Thrive team. And we wish you all a great day. See you Friday. Don't forget to fill out the survey.